Learn in with the help of scientific experiments. I'm going to talk about testosterone levels, placebo effect, social experiment on monkeys and humans too. Genetically, humans are very similar to mice. That is why scientists prefer to experiment on mice and rats. Experiment 1. In the experiment, mice were given the ability to receive a pleasurable sensation in their brain by simply pushing a lever, which is analogous to how we are capable of achieving orgasm pretty much whenever we want. Both male and female mice pretty much gave up on life because they had no interest in eating or even caring about their offspring. Their number one goal in life was to stay by that lever and just keep pushing it until they ran out of breath. In any addiction, you need more and more of the same stimulus just to get that level of high. Eventually, it gets to the point where nothing gets you off anymore. This is known as the Coolidge effect. It spreads to other areas of life as well. Things that used to enthrall you are now uninteresting and boring for you. When receptors become overwhelmed, the brain responds by eliminating dopamine receptors, an adaptation similar to turning down the volume on a loudspeaker when noise becomes too loud. Experiment 2. Scientists put a male mouse into a cage with a female. They observed that over time, the male started to become less and less attracted to the female mouse, and eventually he was no longer interested in her. This indicated that dopamine levels decreased over time. However, when a new female mouse was introduced, his dopamine levels spiked all the way back up. In fact, if the scientist continued to introduce new female mice into his cage, he would keep having love until he could physically not move. This same effect is 100% present in humans. This means while watching pornography, you can consistently keep your dopamine high by watching different videos. It's entirely possible for you to watch porn for hours and hours at a time, and remember, for the entire time you're watching porn, you're bombarding your brain with dopamine levels equivalent to those caused by some hardcore drugs. And of course, when that happens, your brain starts decreasing the amount of dopamine receptors you have, and over the course of years of watching porn, you end up doing serious damage to your dopamine. This is a large reason to why there are so many men out there that have mental disorders such as social anxiety, depression, and lack of motivation. Our species have survived this long because of our instinctual reward system, wherein events that benefit us give us pleasure, and the biggest of them all is reproduction. Because without reproduction, we wouldn't exist. Experiment 3. Scientists have conducted experiments where they turned off the dopamine receptors in rats and found that the rats would become so lazy that they died of starvation, even though there was food in their cage. They simply had no motivation. Addiction researchers have measured a decline in dopamine receptors in the brains of addicts of all kinds, including internet addicts. Experiment 4. Monkey business. Primate studies show that dominant primates have higher dopamine levels than submissive primates and that these levels are fluid, but not until hierarchy is established. One cannot predict in advance which primates will become dominant based on receptor levels. This permits new males to rise to the occasion when a troop leader disappears. A newbie's receptor levels rise when he assumes the throne. Dopamine receptor density is not innate, but rather responsive to circumstances. Humans and monkeys are both primates. In humans too, researchers observed that increased social status and increased social support correlated with the density of dopamine receptors. Is NoFap placebo? This is a tricky question. No matter how effective a treatment or intervention is, in this case NoFap, some benefits for some people will be partially explained by the placebo effect. For example, a study once showed that about 50% of the pain-relieving effects of morphine were due to placebo. This doesn't make morphine simply a placebo. It's just that people's expectations are synergistic with the active mechanism of action. What about testosterone? Most guys logically assume that blood testosterone levels must somehow be involved with the benefits they experience. It's not. Blood testosterone levels are not significantly affected by ejaculation or abstinence. If dopamine receptors are low, all the testosterone in the world may not get you going. NoFap was the first step. After seeing the effects it had on me, I then asked myself, what would happen if I decided to cut as much artificial dopamine-enhancing stimulation out of my life as possible? Thanks for watching. If you want to support, don't forget to subscribe and comment. Also, I suggest you check out this amazing video by Stav.